On some transfer stories today that we want to talk about and the players surrounding it. It's been in just before we went live. A journalist called Nick. I want to try and pronounce it right. Ciramano, who is based out in Italy, who's been on the ball so far when it comes to the Joshua Zirkzee deal, has stated that Manchester United have found an agreement in principle with the agent of Joshua Zirkzee. And Bologna are now bracing themselves for United to put the bid in, to the release clause bid, which is around 35 million. It is reported that we're getting around about a 50% discount on the agent fee. So from sort of 12 million down to 6 million, which is about in line with what you pay agents now. So you're looking at a total of around 40 million English pounds to buy Joshua Zirkzee. I'm really intrigued. I think a lot of people still wait for that kind of David Ornstein Fabrizio tweet about it. But there does seem to be a fair amount of credibility behind this. Sky Sports in the UK have reported on it. What's your thoughts on Man United signing a striker and a profile such as Joshua Zirkzee to add to our ranks next season?
I like him. I did a little bit of research about him. First of all, for the people who don't know, he's 23, so he's not ideally that experienced player that everyone thinks we need to add to this team. Because everyone thinks we need to add an experienced striker, and I hear it, by the way. But he's not that much experience. He's only 2 years older than Højlund. But he's a completely different profile than Højlund, and that's what I like about him. He's not. I don't think he's going to be that guy that's going to bag like 25 to 30 goals a season. He's not that type of profile. He reminds me a little bit more of a Martial profile, where he likes to get involved in the build-up. He likes the ball to feet. He likes to play with the back to goal a lot. He could play the multiple ways, but he's not shy of getting the ball and actually moving it around. He has a little bit of flair about him. Not the best dribbler, but he's a decent dribbler. So he kind of likes to get involved more rather than just be that poacher, rather than be that guy just like playing off the shoulder and tries to nick a goal here and there in the box. He's not that type of guy. He's not just a finisher. He's like a little bit more all-rounded. And I like that about him. I like his profile. I think he had only 11 goals in the league last season. So like 11 goals and 5 assists. To me, that speaks Martial. Because Martial's best season, remember when we had Martial in his peak? I think he had like 16 goals in the Premier League, which is really, if you're being honest, like for a top United striker compared to our past, that's around not really a lot of goals. I think we look at 20 and more and we're like, all right, you're a top finisher. But he offers a lot more in the all-round play. And I think it's forced on me now at this point that Ten Hag is going to stay, so I might as well talk about it the way he likes his strikers. And he likes his strikers to be a little bit more involved. We saw him try to replicate a little bit more when he had Weghorst, even though Weghorst is not that technically gifted. But Weghorst used to actually try to be on the ball to create that space in behind, which is why, to be fair, Rashford thrived. Do I look at him as being our starter next year? 100%. He comes in and he absolutely takes Højlund's position right away, because he does a lot more in the game than just wait for service, and that's been one of my biggest criticisms of Højlund all season. When people say he doesn't get chances created for him, big players, big up Steve, absolutely spot on with this comment, saying he's a very high IQ player. When you watch, just go watch a little bit of his stuff. You're gonna see a lot of glimpses of this and that, not necessarily just G&A highlight. And that's what I like about, like, if you ever watch a comp of a player and it doesn't just involve goals, that's always a good sign. I hate nothing more than a comp that just shows goals, because it means like you're not showing me what else he does in the game. You know, he does a lot more in the game. And to be fair, at that price, at 70, at 40 mil, that's not bad at all, considering that we paid 70 last year for Højlund. He completely brings a different dynamic, and I'll be excited for it. I wouldn't put a lot of hope on it. I don't think he comes in and he right away becomes like a top 3, top 4 striker in the league. Not at all. But it is a step in the right. He fits the timeline a little bit more, because I've had a few discussions yesterday and some other days with United fans, and some of them want an experience. I was talking to Griggs yesterday. He said he wants a Morata in this United team, and he was like, he feels like as a second striker in this team next to Højlund, he would offer a different dynamic and he would offer a lot more experience. Plus, he's played for big clubs. But this was my argument. Why do we need a little bit more of an experienced striker when, let's be honest, we did force ourselves into a second rebuild now with Ten Hag, especially with the whole structure changing.
When people say that, when people say about a second striker, you need 2 or 3 at a club. It's just this idea. Now that most teams have one striker, you don't need 4 as we used to have, but we used to have 2. But if when you had played with 2 strikers, you needed 4. If you're playing with 1, at the very least you need 2, if not 3. And for me, what I love about this deal is that he's different from Rasmus Højlund. So I don't really care which one starts. I like the fact they're different. It means whatever one you bring on, if it's for the other or if it's coming on the field together, and I think they can play together because they're a different type of striker, it means you're going to try and do something different. It gives the opponent something different to think about. I like that depth. One thing around Zirkzee that I've watched, one thing about him I've read in a lot of the scouting reports is he's improvement off the ball over the last couple of years. He was playing in a pressing team last year, and he ranked top in Serie A for the most amount of turnovers last season, and he won the most. I think he was 2nd or 3rd on the list for the most possession won in the opponent's box. And all these little things add up to what I think could make a very good signing. There's always that, will he adapt and play well in England? Will he adapt to Manchester United? Those question marks hang over him because sometimes this just happens. And me and my brother were actually talking earlier on today about Mihajlo Mudryk, and my brother was talking about how Courtney, a really prominent boxing coach, spoke once about how there are fighters in his club where he trains that are amateur or sort of semi-pro. But in sort of sparring and in training, they will school some of the higher-rated professional boxers and batter them. But you put them in a ring where the lights are shining on them and there's an audience there and the media are taking notes and something don't work in their head. And suddenly they look average. And that's why there is I'm so shocked that not enough football fans speak about the mentality of a player. And that doesn't mean you're lazy or you don't work hard. Some people, the stadium gets bigger, the lights get brighter, the noise gets louder. For some people, that is fuel. And like, yes, Zlatan Ibrahimovic is sort of a standout example. The more pressure that was put upon him, generally the better he got in his career. Some people, the bigger that pressure gets, they shrink and they shrink and they shrink. And it was my only real criticism I ever had of Martial, is I felt that when the competition for his position grew at the club, he shrunk. When he was one of the only people there through people leaving or injuries, he was absolutely amazing. But there has to be competition because you need strength in depth. So look, I hope it works out if we bring him in. What is great, it's going to be around 30 to 40 million pounds, and that represents a good piece of business. It's low risk based on that money in 2024 as well, which I think is key. If we were dropping 70 or 80 million pound on him, I would be worried because for a lot of people, this will almost go under the radar as well. He's not going to be in the discussions on the media shows, the talk shows, the big social media networks before the season starts because he's not a 70, 80 million pound player. Plus, I agree with you. I probably would like to see him start. I also felt Rasmus at the end of last season was looking much better coming on from the bench as he learns his game because he's still very raw. So for me, it's, again, you know the way I view football. Also, we both like the same player here, which is interesting because I like ugly footballers. But just putting it out there. But
most of the players you rate are ugly. Let's be honest.
No, it's just I see different. It's more delivery, but I like Zirkzee. But again, I'm up for it, and I'm intrigued to see who else we kind of go in for. But he's very good in the approach play. We're looking at the likes of Lenny Yoro. We're looking at Branthwaite as an example. We seem to be looking at lots of players that are comfortable with the ball at their feet, which feeds into the early reports that the club are going to be telling the manager, we want to become a possession-based team, which I know that we're none of us are happy. You're not, and I haven't been happy with him, but he should be able to coach that because that's literally what he coached his whole life. So we will see how.
This is why when we spoke this season about the lack of technical players that we have, I remember KJ made this comment and it actually pissed me off. He said something about just nutmegs and step overs. That is not what a technical player is. A technical player can receive the ball, can take a touch on a ball, can pick a pass, intelligent play. That is a part of being a technical. Not everything technical, because I feel like when you talk about technical players and we say ballers, people just think I'm thinking of Ronaldinho as an example. That's not what technical is. We do have a severe lack of technical players in this team, which is why, and you're gonna like this commentary. At the end of the season, when we start playing Ahmad, the likes of Bruno, as an example, start looking better. You know why? Because he had a player that instead of just running him behind like Garnacho does and Højlund does and Rashford does, he actually had someone to play off. And it just shows you, surprise, the more you have technical players in this team, the more they can actually move the ball around. You cannot be a position-based team when most of your players are not good at the ball. And that's something we've had last year.
Do you know what I think it comes down to? And I'm not. I get why you're frustrated with what KJ said, but this is why conversations on podcasts are so key. I get accused sometimes of trying to catch people out, and I'm not. I ask questions because I want people to actually break down what they want. So when you say technical and KJ says technical, you both might be thinking about slightly different things. So it's always important that one of the most important questions to ask is, when you say technical ability, what do you actually mean? Because what he's calling technical ability, you might call flair and skills and tricks, as an example. Me and Lee Gunner had a real big debate once. He separates finishing from being a good goal scorer, or I don't necessarily do. I think if you're a good finisher, you're also a good goal scorer. I think they're, like, for me, that I feel like they're one of the same, where he separates them, and that's fair. But it helps in a debate or a conversation if you understand each other's definition. I've seen James McLean getting a lot of stick because he said that. I think he's done a little bit of I'm going to dig at the English, which is fine because he's Irish and it's part of the banter between the nations. But he said this thing about Declan Rice. Declan Rice is not world class because he wouldn't get into every team in the world. But not everybody's version of world class is that you can get into any team in the world. Because if there was 4 players of Rodri's quality, by your definition, 2 of them are not getting into every team in the world. Therefore, you're saying they're not world class. So it's about understanding where people are coming from when they say things, as opposed to what it is they say. So I agree with you. Technical ability to me isn't actually somewhat, because there are players like, for instance, Wilfried Zaha has brilliant flair and skills. I don't think he's technically that good. Sometimes that guy tackles himself at least 3 or 4 times a game, and that's because do you get where I'm coming from? So
you can have flair without being a technical flair and tech.
Yeah.
You know who's the best example? Yannick Bolasie. That was a street baller. He had all the skills and flair, but he's a technical
skills. Technical ability was low.
If you can't shoot, are you really technical? If you can't actually wait a cross or a pass, are you actually technical?
Michael Carrick, highly technical, almost no flair. But 100%. His first touch was great. His awareness was good. His weight of pass was like, it's things like this. Technical ability means you can weight a pass great. Like Scott McTominay, part of me loves him, right? Just because he's a United player. But his inability to judge the weight of sometimes the way he drills a ball at someone is ridiculous. Like, you have to have an amazing touch to control some of his passes, because his subtlety on the ball is off, because he doesn't have the technical ability. Where when it's Mainu, you look at Mainu as an example. He could kick an egg to you and it wouldn't crack, because he knows how to hit it in the right way. And there is a fundamental difference.
By the way, I'm happy that Manu's not playing. I know that there's a little bit of a United bias that I have to say. I'm so happy he's not playing. When he came on in the first game and they were getting peppered by Serbia, I was so worried England would concede and they blame him, because I thought they'd do the same thing they did to Saka when he played that 25 minutes and they put him on every front page. I was very worried of that. Mainu is probably one of the most technical players in that midfield, if not the most technical one, next to Morton. But I'm so happy he's not playing, because this is an absolute shit show of a midfield.
I do hear you on that. There's part of me that is happy that there's no Man United players being criticised this summer, and it's nice.